Watch public advertisements. On public projects, the request for services are publicly advertised. They have to be. And so if you need to designate someone in the firm to check that every day and see, is that a project for which we would like to provide services that we'd like to submit a proposal on. So we talked about go versus no go. There may be some projects you don't want. So you decide ahead of time which ones that you would pursue and which ones you don't. RFP, just so you know, stands for a request for proposals. That's in the that's one of the types of public advertisements. Another one's called an RFQ, which is a request for qualifications. So when you provide these responses to, especially for public advertisements, make sure that every bit of information that they requested is in that response, or they're going to throw it away. A responsive proposal is considered to be an offer or proposal that conforms in every aspect to the requirements that were set forth in the request for proposals. If they're not responsive, they're almost always just disqualified and discarded. Team experience is a very good reason for other people with similar needs to consider your team. When I was down in Tennessee, our firm got clinics back to back because those doctors all talk. We did a good job on one and in another and another, and so on and so forth. Okay, team relationships. Everybody on the team has relationships that have value, and don't discard or overlook that potential. I was a facility manager for a company, true story. And I was also on the board at the YMCA, and we had a problem in the lower level of the YMCA, which was some sand filters that were cast iron sand tanks that were an inch thick, and we couldn't cut them apart with anything, and they were taking up half the basement because of the heat sink of the sand behind them and a acetylene torch. They just laughed at that. And I made a comment at work to one of the janitors that I wish I knew someone who had a plasma art cutter, which was a ridiculous concept in a small town like what we were in. And he said, I'll bring one back when I go home for lunch. And I thought that was funny until he brought one back when he came home from lunch, or came back from lunch, a $55,000 plasma art cutter. It turned out he was actually half of a team, a racing team, and his partner's job was to race it, and his was to rebuild it if he wrecked. And they were making a lot more money than he was working at the place where I was working for the benefits, for the insurance. So kind of interesting. You don't know who your team knows. I mean, you may hire this kid that you think has no network, and it turns out that his dad is the vice president at General Motors and knows every car manufacturer within 200 miles, up close and personal. So everyone on that team should be looking for a way to submit proposals. Persuasive writing is considered to be any written work that tries to convince the reader of the writer's opinion. Less is more. Don't overwhelm people with information. You just give them enough information to whet their appetite so you can give them more information in person and establish a relation. The more concise the information is, the more that you convey to the reader that you value their time and their intelligence. Don't overwhelm them with words, and don't throw in words that are industry specific, because that's not going to impress them. It's going to most likely irritate them. Think about how you feel when you go to the doctor and he's throwing out all these long names of medicine. Or my wife's a nurse and she's in quality control for coding, medical coding. I have no idea what she's saying most of the time, and I don't really necessarily want to. But if my doctor was talking like that to me, my response would probably be, is there any reason why you can't communicate? So don't throw around industry specific terms when you're trying to market. And making the short list, that's the goal. Get to the next step, which is going to be an in-person meeting, and you can sell them on you and on your team.